Well, good evening. Thankful to be here. Thankful that you're here. Monday night in a meeting like this is always a little bit more difficult because people got a lot going on, and we just appreciate all of you being here. And we're thankful that we have guests. As David just mentioned, we're very thankful that you're here. I promised you yesterday that tonight we're going to talk about when storms come our way. And I know that's not a pleasant topic because when we start talking about storms of life, we talk about pain. We talk about difficulties that come our way. And that's one thing that we all understand is the fact that we all have difficulties that are going to come our way. None of us are immune to it. Any of us that have lived for any length of time are going to know that storms are going to come our way. Difficulties are going to be a part of our lives. And as difficult as that is to handle, we just have to be ready for the fact that we know life is not going to be easy. We've never been promised in the Bible that life is going to be easy, even for those who are servants of God. Matter of fact, if you look at the lives of those in the Bible, you don't find one of them that is problem-free. And so when you start thinking about storms, you start thinking about how real storms, as far as the weather is concerned, have a lot in common with storms that come our way when it comes to our personal storms. You think about it. Storms are unexpected many times. I remember being down at St. George Island, and my wife has a huge family. She has 3 sisters, and they all have a bunch of kids and grandkids and all this. And so we all like to get together and go on vacation together. But we had one trip to where at that point we had 31 of us in one house, if you can imagine that. And so we're packed in this beach house. It's a big house, but 31 is still, filling it up really well. We're all out on the beach in St. George Island. If you've ever been down there, it's almost like a deserted island out there. As far as you can look on either side of the beach from where we were, we saw maybe 7 people at the most. And so it was just our family out there. Well, we got out there, we were playing and enjoying all the things that we're doing, and all of a sudden, somebody says, that cloud's kind of coming our way fairly quickly. And we said, it's probably pretty far out. And before we knew it, that cloud came straight in off the ocean. Wind started blowing, kids screaming, floats and toys everywhere. And it was chaotic for about 10 minutes there to where sand was blowing in our face. We just did not expect this storm. All of a sudden, it's on top of us. We're all trying to run for the house and grab the kids and everything else. And sometimes that's exactly what happens to us in life, isn't it? When a storm comes our way, we're fine one minute, and all of a sudden we're in a different spot the next minute. I've told you this before when I've been here. For us and our family back in 2002, we're on a vacation in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, getting ready for our oldest one to start kindergarten just a couple of weeks later. And my wife has a seizure in the hotel room. We go just a few minutes later to the hospital. They check her out. And 1 minute she's fine and we're on vacation. And a couple hours later, we're on our way home with a brain tumor diagnosis. 29 years old and she's got a brain tumor. Talking about a storm that suddenly comes on you. That's what happened with us. And we thought our youngest one, being 2 years old and having diabetes, being diagnosed at that early age was a bad thing, and it was. But this is so much greater. And so when we talk about storms, and if you're here tonight and you're going through a storm right now, if you've been through a difficult time, then I hope and pray that this lesson helps you in some way. That's the goal tonight, is to help all of us to understand that storms are going to come, but we also need to know how to handle those best way we can. And so this lesson is for you if you're going through a difficult time. And we have a few questions that pop up anytime that we're in the middle of a storm. And we're going to try to answer those from the Bible tonight. And so when we talk about storms, we start thinking about the fact that we have this main question. Where is God in the storm? There's so many people that have asked me that question. I'm sure David and others have been asked that question as well. Where is God when I'm hurting? Where is God when all these terrible things are happening to me or my loved one? Where is He? Because we seem to count on God to shield us and protect us from all harm. But we also understand reality is we still hurt. We still have difficult times. And so we have to ask that question at times. Where is God when I'm hurting? So let's look at 2 Corinthians chapter 12 as we begin this study. And again, I want this to be very practical and helpful. And we relate this to the people in the Bible that dealt with the same type of things that we do as well. And one of those is Paul, the apostle. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, look at verse 7. And many of you remember this case where Paul has this, what is called the thorn in the flesh. And we don't know what sickness it is or what pain is involved in it, but it's some ailment, some problem that he has that is hindering his health. It's hindering his work as an apostle. And so here he says in verse 7, "And lest I should be exalted above measure, by the abundance of the revelations, a thorn in the flesh was given to me." And notice what he calls it, "a messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I be exalted above measure. Concerning this thing, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times that it might depart from me. And he said to me, My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, most gladly, I will rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in needs, in persecutions, in distresses, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong." So here you have Paul, and he has this difficult situation that he's facing. And he pleads with God to take it away from him, much like we do. So we can see the relatability, right, between us and Paul in this situation. Now, whatever your thorn in the flesh is, and we know that storms of life take on different, descriptions. You can have the loss of a loved one, just like I lost my wife at age 33 after dealing with brain tumors 3 different times. We have financial problems that come upon us. We're fine financially one moment. Next thing you know, we've got all these bills or all these things that have taken its toll on our finances, and now we are in a bad way. We didn't see it coming, but now we're in a bad spot. They can take us from a family situation, a family storm. And I'll tell you, and I think I've told you this before, we've had several of those in our lives. We have our oldest daughter, Katie, 2 years ago. She had a problem with Adderall, and we had to end up taking her, without her really wanting to go, to a rehab facility over in Gadsden. And she stayed there for 7 months dealing with that. And so we've dealt with that in our family. There's no perfect family. All of us are flawed. All of us have our problems. And we just need to realize that we're all alike in that way. And so storms come in different ways. They can be emotional storms. They can be spiritual storms, like we talked about tonight, whether we really trust God when those storms come. Do we doubt Him? Do we wonder again, where is He? And why is He not taking this away from me? And so tonight, as we look at this, we're going to ask some of those questions. So first of all, this is one of the main ones, is why is He allowing me to go through this? Why is He? Here in a minute, we're going to say, where is He? But first of all, why is He allowing this to happen? Because a lot of times we look at it from this standpoint. I serve God, and I'm a good person, and I do my best to please Him. Why would He allow me to have to go through what I'm going through? You ever felt that way? Some of us would ask, why is God allowing this to happen? And so many times we look at it and we say, well, we know that God is not the one sending evil our way. It's Satan. And we saw that with Job. If you read the book of Job, Job is the one inflicting pain on Job. It's not God. But by default, let's be honest, we all feel this way. By default, we say, well, Satan may be the inflictor, but God's not stopping it. And God has the power to stop anything He wants to. He has control over Satan because He set the boundaries for Satan when it came to Job. And so many times we say, well, God is allowing it, and so therefore we look at Him as responsible. So we say, why is it that He's allowing this to happen? Why doesn't He take this away from me because I'm hurting so bad? Well, when we look at the explanation of that, and we can't answer all the questions tonight, But I think we'll have a pretty good idea based on what the Bible does say about some of these matters. And by the way, we're not the only ones who've asked that question. If you look in John chapter 10 rather, there are times where you have people asking the same question. And we'll look at that here in just a moment. But what is that answer? Why is He allowing us to do that? Well, first of all, we live in a fallen world. Ever since the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve took of that fruit, we know that things changed here on earth in a drastic way. You had what we call the perfect world, where everything is great. Man doesn't have to work. Women can have children without pain. Don't you wish that was still the case, right? You know, when you think about all those things that they had prior to the fall, before the sin that they committed, everything was great. They had fellowship with God. We might say everything was perfect. But ever since sin entered the world, we know everything changed. And so now, folks, we are subject to all the things that this life has as far as negative things. We're subject to accidents. We're subject to sickness. We're subject to whatever somebody else may choose to do to one of us or our family members. We're subject to all manner of health problems just because of the fact that we live in a fallen world. Nobody's immune to it. Everybody can become sick or can have any of these things happen. And so, first of all, we know that we live in a world where we're subject to these matters. And wrong place, wrong time can happen to anybody at any point. And so here, first of all, that's one of the main reasons. We live in a world where we're subject in this fleshly body to whatever this world does. And then secondly, we don't like to look at it this way, but there are benefits when it comes to pain. In the weightlifting world, the old saying is what? No pain, no gain. Now, when it comes to our lives, our preference would be no pain, all gain, right? That would be what we would prescribe for our lives if we could. Matter of fact, if I could just give you a sheet of paper and say tonight, I want you to plan out the rest of your life from where you are right now to the end of time, the end of your time here. Would you ever put anything negative on your sheet? Not one of us would. None of us would say, well, yes, I want to go through a financial crisis before I leave this world. Or yes, I would like to lose a loved one that was so dear to me. Or yes, I would like to have some dreaded disease that hurts my body. No, none of us would do that. All of us would love just a smooth, problem-free life, right? And sometimes we get the idea that that's what it means to serve God. That because we serve Him, God's going to protect us from all problems, that everything's going to be smooth, that every prayer we ask for the answer that we want, God's going to grant it, and all of a sudden we're going to be okay. But reality is the fact that God does allow us to hurt. Reality is